Welcome to this videograph, the 150th anniversary driving the Golden Spike. This is presented to the Masons of Utah as an educational feature for your pleasure. The Golden Spike, also known as the Last Spike, is the ceremonial 17.6 karat gold final spike driven by Leland Stanford to join the rails of the first transcontinental railroad across the United States, connecting the Central Pacific and Union Pacific Railroads on May 10, 1869, at Promontory Summit, Utah Territory. The term last spike has been used to refer to one driven at the usually ceremonial completion of any new railroad construction projects, particularly those in which construction is undertaken from two disparate origins towards a meeting point. The spike is now displayed in the Cantor Arts Center at Stanford University. Completing the last link in the Transcontinental Railroad with a spike of gold was the brainchild of David Hughes, a San Francisco financier and contractor. The spike had been manufactured earlier that year, especially for the event, by William T. Garrett Foundry in San Francisco. Two of the sides were engraved with the names of the railroad officers and directors. A special tie of polished California laurel was chosen to complete the line where the spike would be driven. The ceremony was originally to be held on May 8, 1869, the date actually engraved on the spike, but it was postponed 2 days because of bad weather and a labor dispute that delayed the arrival of the Union Pacific side of the rail line. On May 10th, in anticipation of the ceremony, Union Pacific number 119 and Central Pacific number 60, better known as the Jupiter, locomotives were drawn up face to face on Promontory Summit. It is unknown how many people attended the event. Estimates run from as low as 500 to as many as 3,000. Government and railroad officials and track workers were present to witness the event. Before the last spike was driven, 3 other commemorative spikes presented on behalf of the other 3 members of the Central Pacific's Big Four, who did not attend the ceremony, had been driven in the pre-board laurel tie. A second, lower quality gold spike, supplied by the San Francisco Newsletter, was made of $200 worth of gold and inscribed. With this spike, the San Francisco Newsletter offers its homage to the great work which has joined the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. A silver spike, supplied by the state of Nevada, forged, rather than cast, of 25 troy ounces, 780 grams, of unpolished silver. A blended iron, silver, and gold spike, supplied by the Arizona Territory, engraved, ribbed with iron, clad in silver, and crowned with gold. Arizona presents her offering to the enterprise that has banded a continent and dedicated a pathway to commerce. This spike was given to Union Pacific President Oliver Ames following the ceremony. It is on display at the Union Pacific Railroad Museum in Council Bluffs, Iowa. The golden spike was made of 17.6 karat, 73% copper alloyed gold, 14.03 troy ounces, 436 grams. It was dropped into a pre-drilled hole in the laurel ceremonial last tie and gently tapped into place with a silver ceremonial spike maul. The spike was engraved on all 4 sides. The Pacific Railroad, groundbroken January 8, 1863, and completed May 8, 1869. Directors of the Central Pacific Railroad of California, Honorable Leland Stanford, C.P. Huntington, E.B. Crocker, Mark Hopkins, A.P. Stanford, E.H. Miller Jr. May God continue the unity of our country as this railroad unites the two great oceans of the world. Presented by David Hughes, San Francisco. A second golden spike, exactly like the one from the ceremony, was cast and engraved at the same time. It was held, unknown to the public, by the Hughes family until 2005. This second spike is now on permanent display, along with Thomas Hill's famous painting, The Last Spike, at the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento. With the locomotives drawn so near, the crowd pressed so closely around Stanford and the other railroad officials that the ceremony became somewhat disorganized, leading to varying accounts of the actual events. On the Union Pacific side, thrusting westward, the last two rails were laid by Irishmen. On the Central Pacific side, thrusting eastward, the last two rails were laid by the Chinese. A.J. Russell Stereo View number 539 shows the Chinese at laying last rail, Union Pacific Railroad. 8 Chinese laid the last rail, and 3 of these men, Ging Chui, Wang Fuk, and Li Xiao, lived long enough to also participate in the 50th anniversary parade. At the conclusion of the ceremony, the Chinese participating were honored and cheered by the Central Pacific Railroad officials and the road's construction chief, J.H. Strobridge, at a dinner in his private car. To drive the final spike, Stanford lifted a silver spike maul and drove the spike into the tie, completing the line. Stanford and Hughes missed the spike, but the single word "done" was nevertheless flashed by telegraph around the country. In the United States, the event has come to be considered one of the first nationwide media events. The locomotives were moved forward until their cowcatchers met and photographs were taken. Immediately afterwards, the golden spike and the laurel tie were removed, lest they be stolen, and replaced with a regular iron spike and normal tie. At exactly 12:47 p.m., the last iron spike was driven, finally completing the line. After the ceremony, the golden spike was donated to the Stanford Museum, now Cantor Arts Center, in 1898. The last laurel tie was destroyed in the fires caused by the 1906 San Francisco earthquake. Although the promontory event marked the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad line, it did not actually mark the completion of the seamless coast-to-coast rail network. Neither Sacramento nor Omaha was a seaport, nor did they have rail connections until after they were designated as the termini. The Mossdale Bridge, which was the final section across the San Joaquin River near Lathrop, California, was finally completed in September 1869, completing Sacramento in California. Passengers were required to cross the Missouri River between Council Bluffs, Iowa, and Omaha, Nebraska, by boat until the building of the Union Pacific Missouri River Bridge in 1872. In the meantime, a coast-to-coast rail link was achieved in August 1870 in Strasburg, Colorado, by the completion of the Denver extension of the Kansas Pacific Railway. In 1904, a new railroad route called the Lucin Cutoff was built by passing the promontory location to the south. By going west across the Great Salt Lake from Ogden, Utah to Lucin, Utah, the new railroad line shortened the distance by 43 miles and avoided curves and grades. Mainline trains no longer passed over Promontory Summit. In 1942, the old rails over Promontory Summit were salvaged for the war effort. The event was marked by a ceremonial undriving of the last iron spike. The original event had been all but forgotten except by local residents, who erected a commemorative marker in 1943. The following year, a commemorative postage stamp was issued to mark the 75th anniversary. The years after the war saw a revival of interest in the event. The first reenactment was staged in 1948. In 1957, Congress established the Golden Spike National Historic Site to preserve the area around Promontory Summit as closely as possible to its appearance in 1869. O'Connor Engineering Laboratories in Costa Mesa, California, designed and built working replicas of the locomotives present at the original ceremony for the Park Service. These engines are drawn up face to face each Saturday during the summer for a reenactment of the event. For the May 10, 1969 centennial of the driving of the last spike, the High Iron Company ran a steam-powered excursion train, round trip, from New York City to Promontory. The Golden Spike Centennial Limited transported over 100 passengers, including, for the last leg into Salt Lake City, actor John Wayne. The Union Pacific Railroad also sent a special display train, and the U.S. Army Transportation Corps sent a steam-powered 3-car special from Fort Eustis, Virginia. On May 10, 2006, on the anniversary of the driving of the Spike, Utah announced that its state quarter design would be a depiction of the driving of the Spike. The Golden Spike design was selected as the winner from among several others by Utah's Governor John Huntsman Jr., following a period during which Utah residents voted and commented on their favorite of 3 finalists. An elaborate 4-day event called the Golden Spike Day Celebration was held in Omaha, Nebraska from April 26th to 29th, 1939. To commemorate the 70th anniversary of the joining of the Union Pacific and the Central Pacific Railroad rails and driving of the last spike at Promontory Summit, Utah in 1869. The centerpiece event of the celebration occurred on April 28th with the world premiere of the Cecil B. DeMille feature motion picture Union Pacific, which took place simultaneously in the city's Omaha, Orpheum, and Paramount theaters. The film features an elaborate reenactment of the original Golden Spike ceremony filmed in Canoga Park, California, as the motion picture's closing scene, for which DeMille borrowed the actual Golden Spike from Stanford University to be held by Dr. W. H. Harkness as he delivered his remarks prior to its driving to complete the railroad.
May God confirm the unity of our country as this railroad unites the 2 great oceans of the world.
The Honorable Leland Stanford, Governor of California, and President of the Central Pacific, will strike the first blow at the Golden Spike. We'll take the will for the deed, Governor.
Prop spike was used for the actual hammering sequence. Also included as part of the overall celebration's major attractions was the Golden Spike Historical Exposition, a large assemblage of artifacts, including the Golden Spike itself, tools, equipment, photographs, documents, and other materials from the construction of the Pacific Railroad that were put on display at Omaha's Municipal Auditorium. The 4 days of events drew over 250,000 people to Omaha during its run, a number roughly equivalent to the city's then population. The celebration was opened by President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who inaugurated it by pressing a telegraph key at the White House in Washington, D.C. On the same day as the premiere of the movie, a still-standing, gold-colored concrete spike called the Golden Spike Monument, and measuring some 56 feet, 17 meters in height, was also unveiled at 21st Street and 9th Avenue in Council Bluffs, Iowa, adjacent to the Union Pacific's main yard, the location of milepost 0.0 of that road's portion of the Pacific Railroad. May 10th, 2019 marks the sesquicentennial anniversary of the driving of the Golden Spike. Will we celebrate this 150th celebration in like fashion and do honor as those who came before us did at the 70th year diamond anniversary in 1939? Only history will tell. I am told that there were many Masons present at the Golden Spike ceremony held on May 10, 1869. Prominent attendees, railroad contractors, railroad engineers, workmen, journalists, and visitors. They may remain nameless, as history kept no record of their attendance, or I was unable to identify their association with our fraternity. However, I was able to identify 4 Masons referenced in this article. Leland Stanford was an active Freemason from 1850 to 1855, joining the Prometheus Lodge No. 17 in Port Washington, Wisconsin. After moving west, he became a member of the Michigan City Lodge No. 47 in Michigan City, California. Leland Stanford Lodge No. 784 was established in his honor on September 30th, 1958. In 1990, the lodge consolidated with Chico Lodge No. 111 to become the Chico Leland Stanford Lodge No. 111. Cecil B. DeMille was initiated into Prince of Orange Lodge No. 16, New York. Prince of Orange Lodge No. 16 consolidated with 5 other lodges to become the Lodge of Antiquity No. 11, located in Brentwood, Long Island, New York. Many of Hollywood's elite over the years have been Masons, including Oliver Hardy, Harold Lloyd, Douglas Fairbanks, W.C. Fields, D.W. Griffith, John Wayne, Roy Rogers, Gene Autry, and Cecil B. DeMille. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, 32nd President of the United States, was raised November 28, 1911, in Holland Lodge No. 8, New York City. He attended Architect Lodge No. 519 of New York City, February 17, 1933, where he raised his son, Elliot, to the sublime degree. He received the Scottish Rite degrees in Albany Consistory, New York, February 28, 1929, and became a Shriner in Cypress Temple, Albany, New York, March 1930. Brother and President Roosevelt was made the first honorary Grand Master of the Order of Demolay on April 13, 1934, at the White House. John Wayne, the Duke, received his distinctive nickname as an adolescent while living in Glendale, California. A local fireman at the station on his route to school started calling him Little Duke because he never went anywhere without his huge Airedale Terrier, Duke. He spent so much time with his pet that the pair became known as Little Duke and Big Duke. Duke was also a Freemason, like his father before him. He was a member of Glendale Demolay chapter during his high school days. John Wayne was raised in Marion McDaniel Lodge 56, Tucson, Arizona, receiving his craft degrees in July 1970. A senior Demolay, he was also awarded the Demolay Legion of Honor in 1970. In December of that year, he joined the York Rite Bodies in California and became a Shriner in the Al Malachi Shrine Temple located in Long Beach, California.
All aboard!
Another Mason, not referenced in this article, but appearing in this videography, is Worshipful Brother Steve Sawyer, Corinne Lodge number 5, Corinne, Utah. He retired as a maintenance engineer from the Golden Spike National Historic Park and is the rail hand driving the Spike during the modern era reenactment scene at the park presented in this videography. Brother Sawyer is currently serving as Worshipful Master of his lodge, Corinne Lodge number 5, Corinne, Utah, for the 2018-2019 Masonic year. He is also a member of Alcala Shrine and past president of the Alcala Mini Bikes. If there is anyone who can identify more brothers who attended the 1869 ceremony or who was referenced in this videography, I would be happy to add them to this record. This is Worshipful Brother John Guy Johnson, past Master Wasatch Lodge number 1, Salt Lake City, and Story Lodge number 4, Provo. I would like to thank Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia, for this article, Golden Spike, used in this presentation. It has been my pleasure to bring you this educational feature of the 150th anniversary driving the Golden Spike. This videography has been presented as an educational feature for the Masons of Utah, most especially the officers and members of Corinne Lodge number 5 and the Alcala Shrine Mini Bikes Uniformed Unit.